Welcome back to Hardball. Democrats used to play defense on issues like gay rights, and the hot-button social issues were wedges used by the right to divide the Democrats. But as John Harwood writes today in today's New York Times, the script has been flipped upside down. Here's his article. Now the values wedge cuts for Democrats. Demographic change keeps shrinking Nixon's silent majority. President Bill Clinton and a Republican Congress overhauled welfare. Fear of crime has receded enough that members of both parties propose more lenient sentencing. College students from the summer of love are pushing 70. The elders who disapproved of their behavior are largely gone, and young adults are wondering what the turmoil was ever about. Democrats profit politically among young voters, college graduates, single women, blacks, and Latinos from the sense that they welcome these cultural shifts while Republicans resist them. Well, these issues might be hurting the party in the long run, these cultural issues, but among Republican primary voters, there's no appetite to change course. And that means Republican politicians are trapped right now. Steve McMahon's a Democratic strategist, and John Brabender's a Republican strategist. I'm going to start with you, John. Is it true that some of these states like Colorado, I've noticed, that if you talk social, cultural issues like birth control, there are winners for Democrats because it brings out the women voter? Well,
but let's be honest about it. Where Democrats are talking about it, they're hitting their Republican opponent. It's not like they're all of a sudden switching sides. And I honestly...
No, but it used to be Republicans would... Look how your party took Ohio back in 2004 and blew carry of the settle by going after the Don King and Karl Rove, and they scared all the African-American ministers on the issue of same-sex marriage. Well, look at the numbers, how they shifted. Same-sex marriage was... No, it's not. It's very particular charge that your party used fear of same-sex marriage to get out the vote.
Let me go back to the original question, though, since we're having this little dialogue. What really is happening is symptomatically what you're seeing is Democrats are not running with your president. They're not running with Obama.
Right.
All right. So now they have to go to wedge issues. And they're doing what Republicans did a lot of times years ago. They're going to these wedge issues to try to make the campaign about anything but this president, the economy, and many of the other factors. And that's why you're seeing them talking about social issues. In Colorado, which you mentioned, the Democrat is up against Cory Gardner with an ad on social issues.
You mean like your party for 100 years has said they're going to take my gun away from me, no matter what the economy.
Exactly. And those two issues. But let's be clear, this is because of an Obama.
I mean, the use of wedge issues is normal in politics. Right. I mean, there's some good wedges and some bad wedges, but they're a way of separating people from their constituencies. But I'm asking you, Democrats don't seem to be afraid of gay rights issues anymore. They certainly aren't afraid of birth control.
Right. You look at the numbers, and the numbers have shifted. And as you go younger in the electorate, where the turnout actually is more of a challenge, those issues become more and more popular. So it's a turnout strategy, but it's also a strategy of who sounds more reasonable. You know, these personhood amendments basically would make abortion, if you actually passed it, would make abortion illegal in the first 10 weeks of pregnancy. And just as moderate and swing voters...
How would personhood work if 4 out of 5 times the fertilized egg doesn't attach to the uterine wall? Are those 4 out of those 5 times, are they persons? If it doesn't even attach to the wall and begin development, is that a person under these personhood laws?
For Ed Gillespie, who put it in the Republican platform, and Republicans across the country have campaigned on it and defended it. That's a medical question, but the fact is, at whatever point the person is formed and the attachment occurs, they're protected under the Constitution under this amendment, and that would make abortion illegal in the first 10 weeks. Just as most Americans don't think abortion should be legal in the last 10 weeks, most Americans don't think it should be illegal in the first 10, and that's what the personhood amendment would do. You put it in your platform, then you run away from it.
I think single women are petrified generally by these moves by male office holders and lawmakers to do things like personhood when they know it's aimed directly at restricting their freedom.
Yeah, but let me ask you this. I mean,
and by the way, I'm not even sure this is abortion in these cases, because when you read the science and you learn this stuff that you didn't learn in school, I didn't learn in Catholic school, that there's such a preponderance of cases. That's why there's not a child born out of every sexual act, because you don't have a child every time you have sex. And in the cases where you have the egg is fertilized by the male and the female, and you have a fertilized egg, even 80% of those cases don't go to become a child.
I feel like I'm talking to Bill Nye, the science guy.
I know it, because you had to do a little homework. You know, John, it's called learning something you didn't know.
Well, every time I come here, I learn something.
That's what I'm trying to learn.
But here's what I don't understand. I see all the time where Democrats will run an ad saying, oh, they want to ban contraception. Give me one presidential Republican candidate ever that wanted to ban contraception. I don't know one.
So John,
it never happened.
Rick Santorum brought it up last campaign.
Never wanted to ban contraception.
He brought up the issue.
I was his media consultant.
And why did he bring it up?
I know more about his issues.
Why did he bring it up?
He didn't want taxpayer funding of contraception. That's a completely different thing.
The discussion he had is he said, we've got to discuss birth control. He said in one of his interviews.
He also said very clearly, as well as his wife did on CNN, that he would never make that decision for somebody else, that he would not ban contraception. No one ever said that, yet that shows up in ads.
But what shows up in ads is that they would make contraception unavailable for women through their health care plans. And that, by the way, is something that women, Democratic and Republican women favor.
Let's go to what we're all sound on and we're all schooled on. Votes. A new NBC Wall Street Journal poll out tonight, just out tonight, shows the biggest ever gender gap on the question of what party Americans want to control the Congress. By a 17-point margin, men say it should be Republicans. Meanwhile, by a 14-point margin, women say Democrats should be in charge. And the way they count this is to add those two up. So it's a 31-point gender gap, which is a pretty dramatic statement. John, well, how do you explain that? What's going on in our country that men and women see things so differently?
Well, first of all, I'm surprised by the extreme of that number, but certainly we've seen this gender gap for probably 20 years. Why is it growing?
We've always had men, we've always had women.
Now. One of the reasons I believe is that the Democrats did, and I will even argue effectively, run on what they called the war on women. And I think that had some resonance.
By the way, I just got in my ear the information. I love the producers here. Apparently your guy, Santorum, back in that last election, you're starting to smile now because you're remembering this. He talked about the dangers of contraception.
Well, I think everybody agrees that if not controlled and properly and health care involved in it, that there can be. I mean, this is why you do need a prescription to get birth control pills. So here's my question for you guys, though. You want to go down these.
So politicians should vote on the dangers of birth control. And you say you don't know where the gender gap came from.
What I'm saying is nobody, including him, ever said anything about banning contraception, yet that is what Planned Parenthood put out immediately after.
I'm sorry, if I was a voter and I heard a guy say it's dangerous, I'd say I think he was against it.
It's a dog whistle for Christian conservatives in the Iowa caucuses. That's exactly what he's trying to do.
And he won the Iowa caucuses with that.
And I know, and guess what? The Republicans do this all the time. They use language and then they want to run away from what the clear language means or what the clear meaning of the language is.
By the way, John's been straight with us. Thank you. It is growing, the gender gap. You say it's the Democrats' effective use of the issue. What would you say?
But I don't know why the men are so opposed to the Democrats.
Well, it's guns. It's a lot of things. The men are more culturally conservative, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, or jobs, or economic, or
manufacturing. They made it just like Obama. It's not complicated. Steve McMahon, you like Obama. John Brabender, you don't. So I made my point.